As an epidemiologist, I have to just comment on the series of presentations we had go before that. Back when I started, it was very similar to this, more descriptive epidemiology, but we work very hard to try to identify highly exposed groups of people. And now, if we look at the data that we saw, we're really looking at general population assessments. The cohorts that were looked at for PCBs and PBDEs and others for occupational groups with high-end exposures. Now we're really looking at a more generic general population with a much narrower range of exposures. So that gives us a very interesting new perspective on how we approach epidemiology that we didn't have in the past. But this afternoon, our first speaker is going to be, there he is, Scott Auerbach, who's a molecular toxicologist. This afternoon, we're really going to get into kind of the mechanisms that we talked about, kind of indicators or measures of obesity being BMI, but BMI really isn't a mechanism of action. It's a descriptive term. And Scott's a molecular toxicologist with the National Toxicology Program Division. His primary role is analyzing and interpreting multivariate data sets, including microarray. I'm interested to hear how you do that, that generated some of that data, and finding somebody who can actually interpret the little pretty pictures is a major challenge, at least for me in Wisconsin. RNA sequencing and high-throughput screening and oversight of the NTP drug matrix database and ToxFX, which are very valuable growing sources of information. Our second speaker is Robert Barucki, who's a biochemist and molecular biologist whose focus during the last 15 years has been understanding the toxicity mechanisms of environmental pollutants. In particular, he's studied the dioxin receptor AHR, and recently his focus has been on developmentally relevant cellular effects that are disrupted by AHR. And our third speaker, before we go into our break, is Bruce Blumberg, who's currently professor of developmental and cell biology, pharmaceutical sciences at the University of California, Irvine, where he has been faculty there since 1998. He's also been a staff scientist at the Salk Institute of Biological Studies in La Jolla, California, and is working on his postdoc training was a number of years ago, but in the molecular embryology of vertebrate development. So with that, we'll introduce the next two speakers after the break. And Scott, take it away.